Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, coming at you today with, I think it's the third podcast for the channel. So welcome back to Hyper Bitcoinization. My name is Spike, and today, actually, we got a special guest on here.
What's up, baby?
Hey, what's up, Moose? So I brought my girlfriend Lauren on the podcast today, and this is a specifically audio-only podcast. We're just trying to test the waters here and make sure we're on the right track when the video wants to start. But we were talking about, we talk pretty often about Bitcoin, cause does it ever stop here?
No, it does not. YouTube videos, podcasts, creating your own content. We're always learning over here, regardless if we want to or not.
This is true. This is true. Yeah. Sometimes she's like, will you stop playing some podcast stuff? It's like I was listening to podcasts about Bitcoin while I was at the gym today.
And then you kind of spice it in there with a little bit of Cybertruck videos and then, back to a regularly programmed with Bitcoin. But it's dope. It's soaking up and listening to it has really been helpful, like whether I'm just, doing things around the house and just having it on all the time subconsciously, like is definitely soaking in. And then I kind of find myself being more and more drawn into it and asking a bajillion questions, which is kind of what we are doing here and kind of wanting to record it and turn it into helpful content for people that might have the same questions.
Yep, absolutely. So, Lauren, I orange pilled her 4 years ago when we got together. And so, for the last 4 years, she's pretty much lived with Bitcoin being a major part of her life. Like she said, regardless on if she wanted it or not.
For sure.
But like you've grown a lot, you've learned a lot. And just with what you've done over the last 4 years, like you have been able to put yourself in a really good place because of Bitcoin.
Oh, for sure.
So,
it's thanks to you. And it's really just like your passion behind it. I mean, obviously, that's what first drew me towards it. You're just kind of the type of person that if you're going to spend your time on it, it's better pay off, or not like pay off, just better add value to you, or you're not really going to want to spend your time. Hence why we don't always watch nice reality TV. But no, it's a good balance I think we both have, and it's been really helpful. And I think the passion that I saw initially with it is what drew me towards it, and then just kind of wanting to hear about it, and then slowly like learning about it, and just really realizing how much I didn't know and how little I knew about what's actually occurring. So it's been cool to kind of build a foundation from a different point of view.
Awesome. I love it. Well, hey, you guys know if you've watched my videos, if you've been here before, I usually sip a cocktail, drink a beer, something like that. So we do have a little cocktail. If you've got one, join us. If you're running errands or something like that, I hope you enjoy the video, the podcast, and that we provide you with some type of value. So cheers.
Yeah. Cheers, baby.
Awesome. So I think we should start off. Let's talk about what we were chatting about last night when you were buying more last night. It was your reoccurring buy night.
Yes.
And like something finally officially popped kind of in your head, which was like, whoa, I am getting less Satoshis for more dollars than I previously had.
Totally. Yeah, I think the hardest part is really, and a really cool perspective is kind of shifting your mind on what your base currency is or what you're used to, kind of stepping out of that comfort zone and learning and looking at things through a different lens, whether we're talking about Bitcoin or just different things in life in general. And I think there's a process that you go through to be able to really fully see and understand things. And I felt like last night something just very much clicked in seeing that like a year and a half ago, or I don't know, like 2 months ago, the amount of Bitcoin I was able to acquire at the same price was just night and day difference. And when you put it into that perspective, it's really eye-opening to see. And that's like what's occurring in our society now, even with like goods and services. Yeah,
absolutely. No, you're exactly right. So, we'll talk about the dollar stuff first and the goods and services. And it's a common misconception that people think the value of things are going up, right? Like over the last 4 years since COVID has happened, you've seen pretty much price increases in just about everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like what our mom texted us. My mom texted us the other day, and she talking about like, wow, what are the eggs in Colorado? Because she lives in California.
Yeah, and we're talking about how much more expensive eggs have gotten, but the good itself hasn't gotten more expensive. Our dollars have just gotten...
It hasn't... It has gotten more expensive. It hasn't increased in value.
There we go.
Right? Like, so... the eggs, the gas, the things that you're buying, they're not increasing in value. It's not like they're a hot commodity. Mm-hmm. You just need more dollars to buy that good because we've printed trillions of dollars since COVID till now. It's 80% of the money that is in current existence has been printed in the last 4 years.
That's insane.
And printed doesn't have to mean actual physical cash.
Okay.
They digitally print money.
Okay.
Also,
so, like kind of how if you deposit, but I guess it's not exactly money, but so when they're changing it, they're just like changing numbers like your bank account does when things move around. They're not actually printing a physical dollar.
Right. They're just throwing, 100 trillion more dollars into the market.
Okay.
And they do that through buying contracts of bonds and treasuries and stuff like that, and which is like a little too deep in the woods. But to get the full picture, it's like that house didn't actually gain X amount of more dollars. Like maybe you didn't even do anything to the house. Like maybe it still has an unfinished basement. Maybe the plumbing sucks, right? But the house, just because of the market and the dollar depreciating, everything is going up, which is making it very hard for a lot of people.
Yeah, and kind of along the lines of really trying to shift your perspective, I think what was crazy last night when we were chatting about this is the way we as people of society view it. So like, for example, your mom texts us and was like, oh my gosh, eggs have gotten so expensive. We don't communicate and say, oh my gosh, our dollar is losing value.
Yeah.
And like, we saw that at the grocery store today when I spent X amount of money. Like, it's just crazy.
It's not a thought for people that are like, oh, our dollar is just appreciating.
We just think things are just getting expensive. And like, you hear people talk about, oh, 20 years ago, you could buy a Coke for X amount of dollars. And it's like, instead of saying like, oh my gosh, like reversing it or looking at it in a different perspective. And I think that's been the biggest journey for me, is just shifting my mindset. And I feel grateful. At first, I felt like I was kind of behind the ball and like knowing certain things about finance. But to be honest, I'm grateful that I had like a pretty clean or basic slate to learn things, because it kind of learned it into the problem solution situation where I'm like, wow, this is really starting to affect my daily life. Like how expensive things are. So I saw the problem. And then so hearing how certain things should be, but then seeing how they play out like they really are, again, it's like just a massive perspective shift. And again, learning it as you go, and as it directly affects you, it kind of becomes more real, whether it's my money can't buy as many eggs, or wow, 2 months ago when the price of Bitcoin was a lot lower, I was able to buy a lot more sats.
Yeah. So last night we were looking at a million sats right now is that's 10 million sats. So a million sats right now is... Oh, sorry, I was clicking the wrong button. That doesn't help. It's not telling me, actually. This is being a little weird. But a million sats right now is, I think, about $600. Because last night you bought $500 worth. Yeah. And that got you 700,000 Satoshis.
Right.
But the thing that stuck out was like, months ago, you were buying 1 million Satoshis for less than $500.
For sure, 450, I think.
Yeah, so like that's just crazy to think about. And then the other crazy thing is like you have pretty much shifted. You talked about like shifting your mind for the unit account that you're using, and like now I think you start to think about things in terms of Bitcoin or Satoshis. And so one cool thing is like you moved a majority of what you had in your bank savings account over to Bitcoin over the last 4 years. And Had you not done that, that same dollar amount, right, would have just remained in there.
Exactly.
And you would have made what they call probably 1% on that. And meanwhile, your dollar's depreciating the entire time. So you've been able to let this money work for you. And even though now, like, you're a reoccurring buyer, right? You buy often, at least, every few weeks, that starts to stack up eventually. And what you've gained since moving your money over is nothing a savings account or a bank could have helped you with. And you can say you've protected your savings. You've protected your purchasing power for the last 4 years.
For sure. Totally. Yeah. And in like a time where I really thought things would look different and wish I was in more of I just thought things looked different. Things are just expensive. I wish I was, making more, as I think everybody probably feels it to an extent. But knowing that I could have this tool that I can use, that I can save at least, like, okay, I'm busting my ass 40, 50 hours a week. I want to save that time. I don't want to look back and be like, wow, that was mentally draining. And on top of that, the hours that I worked kind of went to shit because...
Not only that, is they're stealing your time.
For sure.
They're stealing from you, right? So anytime they print money and devalue, debase the currency, they're just telling you that your most precious commodity that you have, your precious asset on the planet,
for sure,
which is your
you can't
time.
get back.
Yep, you don't ever get it back. Was like, whatever, nothing for them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it doesn't affect them.
Yeah.
Because they got more money.
So this is, I think, a good question and something that was helpful when I was or still am, but one of my questions is like, who's they and who's printing money? So like, is this and I don't know that we need to go too far down a rabbit hole, but just give like a little background of like, who's printing the money?
Yep.
How is that all figured out? Because you hear interest rates rising, interest rates lowering, and this is like this balancing game. So how does that work?
The Federal Reserve is who is in charge of the entire monetary policy, basically.
Okay.
And so one thing a lot of people don't understand is the Federal Reserve it's an own entity. It is not tied to the government. Now, does the government probably in certain scenarios have power to kind of step in and tell them what they should do? Mm-hmm. Yes, they probably can, and they can give them their 2 cents. But at the end of the day, it is the Federal Reserve's job to protect the stock market, to pump liquidity through the economy, and they're in charge of also lowering or increasing interest rates. So they basically control everything around the economy, an American economy. And if they feel like we need more money for whatever it is, COVID or helping other countries or whatever, maybe our debt's too big, we can't meet our interest payments, which is what's going on, they decide, all right, we can print money. And they do that in 2 ways. They just create money digitally from the ecosystem, send it to the banks. They buy treasuries and stuff like that to create this money. Okay. And then on side of that, they also have Federal Reserve banks across the country. I forget how many there are. I think there's 12. And those banks, they get some of that digital cash that was created sent to them, and they actually print some dollars. But it's in total just the money that they're creating. And when you can create money out of thin air and do nothing to do it, like create it, there's no energy backed by it, it's just like, hey, we need a couple trillion more dollars, we're going to make it, is very bad for the economy and for the dollar that they use. The only reason that the government like kind of continuously does it and they're not worried about it as much is because it's still the global reserve currency. It is still the best type of currency around the entire planet.
So basically, because it's not
like
bad
finite
or worse, they're just sticking with a plan or a system that's broken, but it's just not the worst.
It's not it's the best system that is terrible at what it's doing.
It's like a pile of dog shit, and you're just saying it's the best dog shit.
It's the best pile of dog shit, exactly. Okay. Yep. And so, it's bad. So there's a saying of like infinite currency creates finite assets. And
okay.
So like Bitcoin is a finite asset, right? There can be as much infinite currency around, and it's not going to change Bitcoin's finite ability.
Okay. When you say finite, that I think is another important piece.
Yep.
So what we have now, like you have explained, is a system where a small group of people not associated with the government, and I kind of have air quotes around that, but in theory, not supposed to be associated there,
right?
Disconnected from that, making those calls for everybody, and they're choosing that. They can send money overseas. They can give us money. Why is Bitcoin different than what we have now, and why would it be better?
Absolutely. That's a great question, because this is something that is maybe it's hard for people to understand, but like we said, there's infinite amount of dollars that can be printed. That's a bad thing. Bitcoin has a finite amount. There will never be more than 21 million coins, which doesn't sound like a lot when you're talking about trillions of dollars that flow through the economy, right? The U.S. debt is $35 trillion. So when you hear there's 21 million coins, for some people it's like, what do you? Okay, that's not going to be enough, right? So right now we're at like 19 million something as far as the amount of coins that exist. And we're over the next 100 years, the next 1.5% of the rest of the supply will be created, but it's capped out at that 21 million. So after the 21 million, nobody could increase it. And right now, what is happening is you're seeing a big supply and demand shock, right?
Okay.
There are maybe about 2 million, probably a little bit less now, Bitcoin on all the exchanges out of the total 19 million that exist.
Okay.
They have 2 million. There is probably another 11 million coins that are just held by long-term holders like myself or you or other Bitcoiners that buy it and don't sell it, right?
Yeah.
And so over the next 100 years, the market is going to try and accumulate as much Bitcoin as there can, and there's not a lot out. So what happens then that's different from the dollar and why the Bitcoin is better is because over time your money will appreciate. If you throw savings in there, you throw your dollars in there, whatever fiat currency you have in there, over time you can guarantee through the long course of time, right? I'm not talking about a month or 3 months or 6 months, that your money will appreciate in value, that you will have more in 10 years holding in Bitcoin than you will holding cash inside of a savings account.
Okay.
Because as Bitcoin is finite, there is less created and more demand for it. It pushes the price up. When the dollar is infinite and there's not a ton of demand for it, people just use it because they need it, and it continues to be printed, the value will continue going down.
Okay.
And yeah, so you'll see like a chart. If you look it up, you can Google it. What's the value of a dollar over the last 100 years? The chart is going straight down.
Yeah, and again, it's crazy to me that like even with the very small knowledge that I had, I knew that. I could tell you that. I could say inflation is a thing and it's depreciating my money, and saying that so like nonchalant and like it's just kind of known and people are like, wow, that sucks, but like not a whole lot's being done about it, I think is just kind of infuriating and also just mind-blowing a little bit with how it's like just become so normalized. Like, why does that need to be normal, and why are we not more concerned about it? And I think we are concerned about it, but I think it feels like such a big task to tackle.
Yes, and I think it's catching on more lately. Just the fact that inflation exists, and like
you're directly impacting your life.
Yeah, it's tough, right? And so I think more people are discovering that, and maybe they're getting more open-minded, which is what you would hope. But like you said, it's very complicated too, right? The system doesn't want people to understand this. They don't want them to understand how money's printed or how interest rates work or what is going on with the dollar. And like this is really like right where the first world problems. Like our cards work. And for a lot of people, if they're not seeing the inflation or thinking about it much, it's because they go shop somewhere, their card works. It swipes and it works. But there is quite literally this same exact thing happening in other countries, far worse, which is called hyperinflation. And we were talking about this last night. This is where they got to take wheelbarrows of cash to the grocery store just to get a loaf of bread.
Right. So then the egg example we were talking about went from like $5 to $7. So then eventually, which is what's occurring with the wheelbarrow thing is that now it goes from 5 to 7 to then needing like a massive amount of money to be able to buy that same product, the egg, and it hasn't really increased in value.
The egg
like it's the same thing,
the
right?
Egg
It's
is not bigger. The egg is
right.
not like
totally.
Yeah,
totally. Yeah. It.
Just like their bread. Their bread is not better by any means. And why the hell should somebody have to take a wheelbarrow full of cash to the damn grocery store? Like that's terrible, right? So
and there's nothing they're doing. They're still going to work. They're still showing up. They're still working those same 40 hours. But yet because we're born into a society that we don't even really sign up for all of these things that come with it. And it's like, I didn't make these calls or make these mistakes. And why am I wreaking these consequences?
Yep. So, and this is great that you bring this up because Bitcoin is the one exit. It is the way that because otherwise, without Bitcoin, okay, like maybe you could buy gold, maybe you could buy silver, like you could invest in the stock market, right? But like some of these countries, some of these people that have high inflation, they can't participate in a network like that. So one, Bitcoin is a global payment system that anybody can use, and it doesn't matter about race, it doesn't matter about background, sex, political opinions, any of that stuff. Everybody can participate in the global economy. And those people can use Bitcoin to their advantage if they're trying to save or if they're trying to spend. They can use it. But yeah, I think there's another part there that I spaced on touching on. But
and now I did too.
Yeah. Well, that is inflate. Okay, yeah.
I didn't remember. I wasn't going to remember I don't remember what we were thinking about, but one kind of note I wrote down here was free market, and I put a question mark. And I think this is another thing that's important to understand is kind of going back to what you're saying with the setup of how the banks and the money is distributed when they decide it's distributed. They're essentially bailing out banks or companies, corporations that should have died off in a free market, right? And can you explain kind of how, again, it's sort of a smoke screen where they're saying it's a free market, but is it really a free market if they're manipulating it? And how, again, maybe not super crazy, but just.
Yeah, totally. So that's a really so this is an awesome topic because basically what you can say is the economy is kind of skewed.
Okay.
When money gets to be created out of thin air, the government or banks or funds basically get to use money to do anything that they want to do, right? So people or governments or whatever it is that have more money have more power. They can do what they want with it. In Bitcoin, it's the exact opposite. Let's just say you own 1 Bitcoin and I own 10,000 Bitcoin. You or I do not have more power than you because I own more money, We each have the same equal effect on the network.
You're just wreaking more financial benefit.
Exactly.
You're not going to have more power or say than I do.
And so here with the fiat currency that we have, money's always being distorted. So let's just say this. There's been trillions of dollars sent to other countries over the last couple of years. And a lot of individuals, including myself, did not vote on wanting that. We do not participate in that. We don't approve of war. And they're just getting to use it however they want to, which is that way. And so it kind of distorts America because it seems like, hey, America's behind this. Like our people support this. And that's included in everything. Like think about health, think about all the other stuff. If politicians want to do things with women or they want to do things with drugs or the drug companies want to do X, Y, or Z, they get to because they get to throw their money.
Lobbyists.
They're just pouring it, right? And when you have to have the vote for that or you have to have hard money go into that pile, if like it was like, hey, we're going to go to war. So everybody who's interested in going to war put your Bitcoin forward, put however much in that you want, and that's what we're going to use.
Wow.
Right? They don't just get to print money and do it. They got to earn it. They got to earn the people's trust or whatever it is, their vote.
Our opinion, our voice matters.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we should have part in that. If you're going to use the dollars that I save in for something that I don't approve of, that's not fair to me. That's not fair to my family. That's not fair to my friends, my nation, my country, whatever it is. I should have the power to do what I want with that and know that my money's not going to be stolen from me or used for purposes that I don't agree with.
Totally. Yeah. And there might be like small thing, like you're not going to probably agree on everything, but it would sit better with you if there was like a majority vote or like majority of the population felt that, even if it wasn't your opinion. At least I'd say, okay, look, this is fair. They've spoke. It's fair and square. Kind of like saying you're winning fair and square. Like, you're not cheating, but like the system's rigged. So it's like, it's not reflecting what our wants and
true
values
intentions
are.
Right?
Yeah.
And so here's the other thing too, and we picked this up from another podcast, but it's like money rules everything, right? So people honestly don't live to their true self unless they have the money that they need or want to do that stuff, right? Like,
exactly.
You got skin problems, but you don't have money to pay for the health bills. Well, then you're stagnant. You're depreciating your health for your skin because you can't pay for it. Like, people that got the money to do what they want to do, and this is what Bitcoin can do for you, is you get to live life however you want to. You want to travel? Awesome. You need health things? Awesome. You need X, Y, or Z? You got it.
You're not hindered or limited by the resources you can afford. You're able to have access to those
absolutely
resources.
Absolutely. So, we want to keep these podcasts pretty short. We're about that 30-minute mark now. I think we should only take maybe 5 or 10 more minutes, but like, we want to try to, with this podcast, get to like more of that beginner intermediate group, and we'll have another advanced kind of conversation for other folks. And maybe if you are advanced, you kind of like what's going on right now, but what do you think has been the coolest part over your 4-year journey, or maybe even think about questions or topics about the bear market we just went through or the bull market that we're going through now? Like what's on your mind most about Bitcoin still being not new, but like walking through those stages of becoming, more of a Bitcoiner, I guess now.
Yeah.
Would you say that? Is that what you are?
I don't know. To be honest with you, it's intimidating for me
to say you're a Bitcoiner.
That. Yeah, because then I'm scared it's going to come with like a bunch of questions. So it's funny. This is actually funny you say this, because I always, if someone mentions whether they see like your video I reshare on my story, I'm like, oh yeah, he is. Like, I don't really ever comment and say like, oh yeah, it's something like we do, because I almost feel like I'm not deserving of the title.
What?
I know.
You totally are deserving. Like, you are a Bitcoin owner. You live in this ecosystem and you understand it. You are a Bitcoiner.
And that goes back to what you were just saying 5 minutes ago. Like, it doesn't matter that you have more than I do. I'm still part of the ecosystem, so it's cool. It builds that confidence, and I shouldn't have to feel that. Yeah. Oh, I mean, truly, like we say here, and this is kind of getting in, we don't need to go down here, but like, the more you learn about Bitcoin, it's not really a question anymore, if I'm being honest. And that might seem like abrupt for people who aren't educated on that. And that is no shade, nothing's wrong with that. But I just think that people that feel so strongly about it in a negative way, more so, probably haven't done the research about it. And it kind of goes with that status that I think was great that you posted a while ago on Facebook, what was talking about just be careful, because a lot of people now with social media, it's amazing, but everybody has an opinion about everything, and that's awesome, but that doesn't necessarily mean that like that opinion is truthful or on it. It's an opinion. So maybe they haven't really researched things. So long story long is just the more you look into it, it's just like so eye-opening, and you just kind of fall into like this hole. And just, I think the craziest piece for me is realizing the different avenues that Bitcoin can be in. And I think that for me becomes relatable. So like healthcare. So for me, truly, like, seeing how broken systems are, whether that like connects with you on a financial level, or maybe
Finance,
that connects
healthcare, schools,
exactly,
education,
exactly,
it's everywhere.
Exactly. And you could kind of, with what interests you, hone in there
Yes.
and really
How does Bitcoin
see
help this?
exactly. And then
Yep.
there's this rabbit hole that you follow, and I'm like, finance, I don't know much about that, but like,
But
now
I know healthcare and
exactly.
I know exercise science, and how does it help or participate in this area?
Right. And it
Yes.
it just is. And then it's this rabbit hole of never ending listening to things, learning new things. And it goes back to what we said at the beginning of this is like, I joke that like we have Bitcoin on here content, regardless if it's like I want to or not, but truly like it always
the rabbit
ends
hole
up
does
grabbing
not
me.
end. Yeah, it does. It grabs you in every scenario. And I'm 9 years into this, and people would think there's nothing more to learn, right? And every single day I am learning something new. Even though I have the amount of experience I have in this field, I'm always learning something new. Like even the Bitcoin meetup I went to a few nights ago, like I understand mining. I can explain mining to you like really great, and I know a lot of the details about it, but they were getting into the big, very, very, very nitty gritty. And I was like, it's like, wow, that's awesome.
It's
to continue to learn that.
And it's cool because that's probably where their passion is. Like we were just saying,
Yep.
so again, it's like it can have pieces once you kind of just learn on it and expand on it and find what like kind of hits home with you. I just think it's like just an amazing tool. It's good to just constantly learn. And like I said too, watching you be so passionate about it and watching it be something that consumes you, like it's like, it gives off to everybody else. Like you inspire everybody else, regardless if like they're letting you know that or not. And maybe they don't get it, but like, it's just, and that's fine. That's totally okay. But it's
Satoshi's main quote: if you don't get it, and it's something like this, right? If you don't get it, I'm sorry, but I don't have the time to explain it to you.
Yeah, they're just wearing different glasses. You're different.
Yep. And what do I always say about people? Like, it doesn't matter if they got the wrong glasses on now; they'll have them on in the future. So what's the saying?
You get Bitcoin at the price that you deserve to get Bitcoin.
Yep. So, but I can also say that I just appreciate you and how much you've been willing to learn, and all the questions you bring up, or even without me pushing you to do it, you just have learned to kind of grasp this and understand the importance of it. But I think that's a pretty good session. So, I do want to leave us with a few things and some Bitcoin things that are going on right now. Today's price of Bitcoin, and this is the 9th of March, 2024, $68,000, $68,200 is what a single Bitcoin is at right now. And twice this past week, we touched all-time highs there for a brief moment, and then Bitcoin kind of came back down and touched some lower levels. Nothing crazy, 5% pullbacks right now, but also at the side tail of that, we are, so this came up on if you don't have the time chain calendar, it's just basically you could see what Bitcoin is doing as far as blocks go. It popped up with a message today. It says, on this day in 1993, Eric Hughes wrote, privacy is necessary for an open society in the electronic age, right? And everything's electronic and digital now. Right now, privacy is more important than it's ever been. But getting past that, Bitcoin is officially at block 833,977. There are 6,023 more blocks remaining until the halving. I think it's about 48 days. It's expected to be on April 20th or probably the 19th. Per US dollar, you can get 1,459 sats. And until the next difficulty adjustment, which is every 2016 blocks, we have 647 blocks left, and the current average block time is 9 minutes and 28 seconds, so it's a little bit shorter than that Satoshi 10-minute goal.
And if that all sounded like gibberish to you, we are going to have an episode I think would be cool to kind of go over
Explain
like what are sats, like because it seems again like maybe a little overwhelming, or maybe like you heard that and you're like, okay, I can roll with it. But in any event, I think it would be cool to have an episode that kind of breaks those things down, maybe kind of like a vocab episode or something that you could go back to as you're expanding your learning and as you're looking at different resources, listening to other podcasts, like having something that's like a home base of like, what are sats again and how many, like, how much can Bitcoin be broken up into, and like kind of just all the nitty gritty there would be cool.
Awesome. We're going to do it. Well, I appreciate your help me out, baby.
You're welcome.
Love you so much.
I can't wait to come back. I love you too.
Yep. So appreciate you guys tuning in to another Hyper Bitcoinization podcast. My name is Spike. And hey, if we provided you with any value today, if you thought any of this was cool, please hit the like button and subscribe, as that would help out the channel a lot. And hey, I love to have the communication with you guys. So throw in the comments if you have any questions, or if you have anything you want us to expand on, you want to learn about, you want podcast videos that we can come out with, please throw it in the comments. And we want to spread all that positivity and awareness. So have a great week. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.
Bye.